Hi all, welcome back to the neighborhood. Today, we're looking at something that's pretty unique. The iSine 10 from Audeze. This is an open back planar IM that was sent into the channel by Dave from DBS Tech Talks. Thanks Dave for sending these in for review. If others would like to send something into the channel for review, then you can email me. My email can be found on the About section of the channel, or from links on the blog. I've got the Tansgem Oxygen in the house from a viewer right now, and I think I've got an Aria on the way as well. So keep a lookout for those upcoming reviews. But with regard to the iSine 10s, these are a pretty unique item. They've always interested me, and they ended up offering a really unique sound. So without further ado, let's get into it. So by all accounts, the iSine 10s was really developed for use with an iPhone, and they also make an additional cable that specifically EQs this device for use with iPhones and other Apple devices. This cable is called the Cipher cable, but unfortunately this cable does not work with Android devices. So all of my commentary and sound descriptions will be in reference to the iSine 10s powered off my phone, portable devices, or desktop amplification, as I was not provided with a Cipher cable here. This is too bad, as I think that I am only getting part of the picture with these in reality. You see, a rumor exists that the sound engineer who tuned these claimed that the iSine 10s were relatively unlistenable without their EQ cable, and I kind of have to agree. Although, we'll get into specifics on that later on when we pick up with the sound. Other variants of these in-ear planars by Audeze include the LCD i3, the iSine 20, and the iSine LX, and all of these came with the Cipher cable per Audeze's website. So it seems like Audeze got the message that the Cipher cable might be necessary, at least eventually. Given this, I had to find a workaround, but more on that towards the end. Paying more attention to the cables, I'm ultimately uncertain if you can use an aftermarket alternative 2-pin cable with the iSine 10, and my guess is that you can't, but for the purposes of this review, I stuck with using the unbalanced stock cable, which consisted of a flat plastic rubber construction, which was just as long as any other IM cable, but with these, somehow I felt that it was still somewhat too short in this instance. Regarding the rest of the build, these look like Spider-Man's webs floating in each of your ears, or something that comes from a Star Wars movie or a Star Trek saga featuring the Borg. Other than the internal planar dynamic diaphragm and a mesh screen, these appear to mostly be constructed of plastic, but the plastic also appears to be solid and of a relatively high quality composition. These mount in your ears by either using internal rubberized wings or plastic ear hooks that surround your ear like an over-ear cable. I had no trouble with the rubberized wings and ultimately preferred that method, so I pretty much stuck with it. One thing to note is that by all accounts online, the plastic ear hooks appear to be less durable compared to the rubberized wings, so if that's your preferred method, you might just want to take some extra care with them. But Audeze appears to have included plenty of spares in the package, and the ear hooks also appear to be relatively easy to replace if need be. These also came with a variety of tips, some of which were smooth rubber and others of which had ridges. My guess is that the ridge tips are supposed to hold the nozzle in your ear canal better, but I discerned no difference in terms of this in use. Speaking of the nozzle that these tips go on is also pretty large, and these require that you insert them pretty deeply to both seal and stand up in one's ears. When inserted properly, these things have a bit of suction to them, so much so that I imagine that they might suck out some earwax. My wife has smaller ears, and we had a hard time getting the iSine 10s to feel comfortable for her, even with the smallest tip options. So if you have little ears, these might be hard to use for you. Like the design approach by Audeze here, the sound that the iSine 10 produces is also unique. In some ways, these are mind-blowing, while in other ways they are barely tolerable. So in terms of this review, we're going to discuss the sound of the iSine 10s in terms of the good versus the bad. With regard to the good, detail and resolution are very respectable, and the soundstage is excellent with amazing instrument separation, distinction, and outstanding dimensionality to the sound. When using the iSine 10s on particular tracks, I felt that I was in a really good 4D movie theater at times, with sounds occurring all around me. Transients are also otherworldly. They almost sound like an open back over-ear. Vocals almost have an ethereal quality to them, but the presentation was remarkably more intimate than the rest of the presentation. At times, vocals were immense in their scope and almost haunting in their character, especially on movie soundtracks. With respect to other strengths, I noted that the bass is a fairly linear one with decent bass extension and impact to it, but there is also not an abundance of sub-bass representation here. But, on a positive note, it was also apparent that the treble was super well extended as well. In terms of the bad, the treble extension came at a cost, as the iSine 10s often came across as either sharp or at the very least bordering on it. Upper mids were also pretty far forward and tended to be very shouty at times. So much so that I could only tolerate listening to these for a few tracks at a time. Timbre was also bright, thin, and somewhat artificial in nature. At times, tones were simply harsh and unnatural sounding. And despite the fact that I praised the imaging for its instrument distinction and separation, its precision with regard to placement was wildly inaccurate. So these are fun, but not precise planars. I also found that the iSine 10s thirsted for power, and power handling and amplifier tones ultimately did affect the sound greatly. With regard to amplifier matching, I enjoyed these the most on my Goldnote DS10 for desktop use, and the Centred Stackport HD for portable enjoyment. Both the current and slightly warm tone from these amplifiers furnished the iSine 10s with thicker and more natural sounding sonics overall. Nevertheless, these are a portable device which ultimately required too much power to be reasonably driven for portable use for long periods of time. And most offensively, the frequency response is also beyond what I would consider to be super peaky. So much so that I had to employ an EQ program called Wavelet to apply the cipher cable's EQ to listen to the iSine 10s for a sustained period of time. With this EQ applied, the iSine 10s became significantly less shouty and aggressive, but may have sacrificed some resolution and stage to achieve this outcome. In summary, the Audeze iSine 10 is a unique experience that is very cool to listen to. I ultimately think that everyone should get an opportunity to hear these at least once, but I cannot recommend these without the use of the cipher cable or the cipher cable EQ, due to their abhorrent, peaky, and overly assertive frequency response. As these have been out for a number of years now, you can now find B-stock variants that potentially come with the cipher cable on Adorama camera for about $150 USD. Despite this attractive price, I'm probably still not going to bite on one of these for myself. And just a reminder guys, at the 1,000 subscriber mark, I'll be giving away another set of KOS KSC 75s. So make sure to hit subscribe, like this video, leave some comments, and follow the channel on Twitter, Instagram, the blog, or join the Discord. Additionally, there's also a Patreon. The Patreon is only $1.50 a month, and it gets you early access to written blog reviews from me. So consider supporting the channel in whatever way you can, and definitely smash that subscribe button. And with that, I'm out for now.